Hey folks, here to record another Steven Universe vlog. This one is on episodes 22 through 24. So this is the last chunk before the live viewing of the mid-season, whatever it is. This was a really good chunk of episodes. I think this was the best set of 3 so far. I was really happy, except when I was really sad. But shows that make me sad make me happy. So, first episode, actually before I get into the first episode, I need to deliver a mea culpa. There is something potentially major which I missed, and that is that Pearl's sword fighting style is Utena's, from Revolutionary Girl Utena. In the episode where she is teaching Steven to sword fight, there was a image set going around Tumblr yesterday, or at least it came across my dash yesterday, and yeah, it is shot for shot. Like, she has exact duplicates of some of Utena's kind of signature moves from her sword fighting style, which is really interesting when we take into account that the gems' bodies are just projections, because Utena, the series, is very much fictional, by which I mean there is no reality within the Utena series. There is no attempt to create a consistent or coherent other world. It utterly rejects that style of viewing and is purely a realm of fiction. The characters' waking lives are no more real than their dreams. Their memories are no more real than fairy tales. People's, memories will slop into one another. People will, be forgotten, and it will utterly alter the entire history of the show. It's kind of trippy. And Steven Universe doesn't work that way, I don't think. But it definitely means gotta watch out. If Utena references are in play, then things are nowhere near as straightforward as they seem. And it could be a suggestion that the correct mode to be viewing this is not the fandom standard paranoid viewing, but rather a more open style of viewing where just because something is true doesn't mean its opposite is false. Where, just being open to whatever happens and seeing what comes and taking things on an emotional and spiritual and mystical level, a level of narrative, rather than, treating it as something structured and engineered. Or, if you want to look at it the other way around, treating it as a construct, as a deliberate creation, rather than something that emerges naturalistically from a set of underlying rules. Basically, it's a strong assertion that the Steven Universe universe runs on magic, not science, which could kind of got some hints of that already, and so definitely want to stay in that mind frame. Anyway, so the first episode was Steven and the Stevens, and man, was it a blast. It basically consisted of Steven time traveling, doubling back on his own timeline. At first, he did it accidentally. And then he started trying to deliberately change history, but that very rapidly screwed things up, and it looked likely that the episode would be going in the direction of, he keeps trying to fix things, and every time he tries to fix it, it gets worse, and eventually he has to erase his own, time travel, ever having time traveled at all. To an extent, yes, but instead what happened is that he very quickly cottoned on that trying to change the past was a bad idea, so instead he just gathered a bunch of his past selves to try to form a band. It reminded me very much of the Calvin and Hobbes story with the duplicator, There was a storyline in that comic where Calvin built a duplicator and made a bunch of copies of himself. And then all the copies basically just caused chaos and trouble, and he eventually, turned them all into worms, because that's a fun thing to be, and let them out into the wild. This had a bit of a darker ending. Excuse me. Eventually, quote-unquote original Steven goes back to finding the orb that allowed them to time travel and smashes it, causing everyone to, like all the Stevens except the one who had not yet found the orb, to dissolve. Steven then recruited the other gems to be his band members, and they did a song about how Steven saw himself die, and that taught him that time travel is not to be messed with. Yeah, wow. The dissolving Stevens looked really painful, but yet, despite having a rather dark ending, it was really just a fun, silly episode. So, which rather contrasted with the other two episodes. Wow. Second episode was Monster Trainer? Monster Pet? Something like that. It was basically a Pokemon riff. Steven... Basically, a series of events resulted in Steven accidentally releasing the sealed-up acid-spitting centipede from the very first episode. Because apparently all those monsters they've defeated are just in storage. They're not dead. But instead of being this giant, horrific monster, it turned into this little, I think they call it a centipedal, which I guess is a cross between a centipede and a poodle. And Steven decided to befriend it and try to train it. And he actually succeeded in doing so, mostly. It was really only because the other gems didn't trust it and kept attacking it that he wasn't able to do so. If they had, respected it and not panicked, and not, and understood that bringing out their weapons in its vicinity was frightening it, instead of making it aggressive. Well, frightening it, and that was making it aggressive. It wasn't being aggressive just because it was aggressive, is my point. Steven would have been able to train it. So, it was a bit sad. It sacrificed itself to save him. And then they, kind of had the reveal that Rose had wanted to do that. And Steven was already being more successful than she ever was. And, perhaps someday he will become a trainer of these monsters. I've been kind of noticing that the monsters tend to have a gem in them somewhere. And now, it was confirmed in this one that the monsters have a gem. And when they're released, Pearl even says in surprise when Steven reveals the power that he can bubble gems. So the implication seems to be that the monsters are kind of the same order of being as the gems. That they're, the same kind of thing. Now, that doesn't mean that, the monsters are corrupted gems or fallen gems or whatever. It could just mean that they're the same, order of being. They're from the same kingdom. Like animals, plants, gems. And so they have this feature in common that their bodies are just projections of their gems, but some gems project monsters and some project heroes. Or at least, intelligent beings that can be protectors. The gems appear to have free will, so it's entirely within the realm of possibility for them to be villains. We already saw that happen with, Sugarlight was essentially a villain. Though again, could Sugarlight have become a monster if left too long? It's certainly an intriguing little hint into how gems work. And to what, relationships between different kinds of things are. And, you know, I don't know that every monster had a gem. Certainly the centipede did, and there have been several others that were, like, gem-like. But I don't know about all of them. Anyway, it was a sad episode. Like, the ending did, you know, it was effective. Felt bad, and at the same time, it felt kind of satisfying that, you know, Steven now has an additional thing he can do that's consistent with the shield. You know, the ability to create these bubbles and teleport them. That's consistent with his shield. It's interesting that he shares that power with Garnet. I wonder, like, how other of his powers might be similar with Garnet. Like, so far he seems to share the bubble with Garnet and the shape-shifting with Amethyst. Though the others ought to be able to... Like, the others sort of can shapeshift too. Amethyst just is the one that relies on it more. I don't know. So the last episode in the group was Indirect Kiss, which is an interesting title. An Indirect Kiss, for those of you who are not fans of terrible anime, is a thing... It appeared... So I only know it from anime, so it's entirely possible that it's purely an anime thing. Certainly the implication of the anime it's used in is that it's a thing in, like, Japanese teenagers, like high school culture kind of a thing. And the idea is that sharing food with someone is intimate. That their lips have been on that food, and so if you eat from it as well, your lips are on it, and so that's like a kiss. It's indirect, but your lips are touching food that their lips also touched, and so it's an indirect kiss. And, of course, that's what's happening between Steven and Connie at this picnic, is they're sharing... It looks like there's only one sandwich, so they're sharing that, and they share the juice. It's possible there's more than one sandwich, and just, like, they're eating it off-screen and pulling out more sandwiches, but it's a little hard to tell. But the juice is definitely being shared. Also, ew, durians. Oh, durian juice. That's just gross. That aside, like, if you've ever smelled a durian, I do not understand who ever looked at something that ugly, that smelled that gross, and thought, yes, I am going to try to eat that. I'm actually really picky. Like, I'm not picky about most things, but I'm really picky about fruit. Anyway, Connie and Steven have this very cute picnic, and during it, Steven tells this story about how basically Amethyst was injured, her gem was cracked, and it caused really weird distortions to her body, again reinforcing that the gem's bodies are essentially projections from the gem, and thus damaging the gem causes weird distortions in the body. Interesting that it screwed up her ability to talk, too. I liked that. But they revealed that Rose had healing tears. And so Steven tried to replicate that power because, of course, his gem is Rose's gem, therefore he should have the same powers, presumably. But nothing came of it. So they went searching for her fountain, which was apparently full of her tears. And there's the usual, like, you know, adventure type stuff. There's all these brambles that are out of control. There seems to be a running theme of things Rose left behind that are out of control. Like the moss stuff in that other episode. Interesting. Wonder what that implies for the biggest thing she left behind, Steven. Anyway, they go looking through all this stuff. Steven and Amethyst, like, Pearl and Garnet go off alone. Steven and Amethyst are left behind. He tries to cry. He can't. Eventually, he does start to cry, and the fountain revives, and Steven thinks he has demonstrated magic, but it turns out that no, it's just Pearl and Garnet pulling the plug. And that's why Steven is so upset and telling this story to Connie, because he's afraid that he will never demonstrate the magic that Rose did, that he will never live up to what the other gems need of him, that they will reject him, abandon him. And it all gets kind of tied in with earlier comments about how he never knew his mother, how everyone else misses her, but he can't because he never knew her. He can't miss someone he never met. He doesn't really know what it is. You know, basically his mother is the gems, you know, especially Pearl. And so he doesn't really know Rose. He doesn't have any strong feelings, and he feels bad about that, and he feels a sense of detachment from the other gems because of that, and that ties into this fear that they'll abandon him, that he won't live up to Rose's memory. Pretty heavy stuff for a kid who's like, what, 10? But then the titular Indirect Kiss, he heals Connie's eyesight, and they realize it's because they shared the juice. And, you know, he made a comment earlier that the juice was mostly backwash, and Connie was like, she didn't care, she just wanted the juice. And, yeah, it healed her eyesight. She no longer requires glasses, which panicked her. You know, she said, you know, what am I going to say to my parents? What am I going to say to my optometrist? It's a scary thing to have your body spontaneously and unexpectedly altered, even if it is, you know, quote-unquote for the better. And I really like that she knocks the lenses out of her glasses and puts them back on, because wearing them clearly is something that she's comfortable with. It's a part of who she is. You know, maybe she was teased about it, or opposite. Maybe people told her she looked good with them, or maybe she's just, you know, used to having that weight on her face. I know when I, you know, look at my face without glasses, or I look at people I know, a lot of people I know wear glasses, when I look at their faces without glasses, their faces seem wrong. Like the glasses is just part of their image. And, you know, maybe that's her. Maybe she's used to seeing them when she looks in the mirror, and she's kind of freaked out at the possibility of not having that. So I actually really like that she put them, like, Steven runs off jubilant, and I like that we end on Connie putting them back on. That was cool. That was a nice little character touch, reminding us that, you know, she is a person independent of Steven. Yeah. That's about it, really. This was just a really good chunk of episodes that I enjoyed a lot. I don't have any deep insights into them other than what I've already said, which I don't know how deep that was. Yeah. So next time, I will be watching episodes 25 and 26 live. I'll probably talk about them after I'm done with them, but the main thing will be like just sitting and watching them and recording myself watching them, recording my reactions like I did with the core finale. Whatever. Finale. Yeah. So I'll see you all then. And then we move on to the second half of the season. Later.